So hey guys, welcome to our new series What If Naruto and Cynthia Were Couples, and in this video we are doing crossover of Naruto and Pokemon. If you like this type of content, so don't forget to like and subscribe our channel, and let's get started.
Wow, you created your own dimension. We read about you living there, but that one is new. So awesome. Naruto said enthusiastically, rocking back and forth in excitement. Cynthia was just as fascinated and could only concur, nodding wildly. Once again, I appreciate your compliment, however I am not the only one with such power. Anyway, this brings us to your next question. In the distortion world, gravity works differently, constantly shifting and not as restricting. Solid ground is scarce and flying is the quickest way maneuvering around. Compared to my own dimension, here gravity is stronger, earth and water are widespread, so my body has to adapt. Constantly flying and floating in this unfamiliar dimension can be hazardous for me. I tire a lot faster. Legs help me more than streamlined spikes, and wings are a necessity for flight as long as you are not a psychic. All in all, I trade a portion of my speed and power for defense and safety. I do this subconsciously. You could call it survival instinct. That is incredible. The ability to adapt to a whole new dimension being built into your body sure must be convenient, Cynthia chirped up, amazed. But can you change back to your other form here too? A curious-looking Naruto asked. His best friend perked up at this and eagerly waited for the answer to that question. Quite so, but I require a specific artifact to be able to transform back. An artifact I lost 10 years ago, Giratina finished with a pointed look shot in the direction of Naruto's necklace. It took them a second before noticing where she was looking and gasped in surprise. So that is why it was glowing. It was reacting to you? Cynthia asked curiously. Naruto was just holding it in front of him, completely enraptured by the glowing crystal. Yes, it sent out an energy pulse I detected while you were holding it above the lake's surface. As you may know, I can peer into your world using various reflective surfaces and observe events happening here. Yup. The stories about you told us as much. We just didn't know if all stories are true or not. Now we know. One step closer to our goal, right, Ruto? Yay. Someday we'll have our own books, full of our stories and facts about legendary Pokemon. After giving each other a high five, they settled down again, apologized to Giratina and waited for her to continue. An interesting goal you two have in mind. Back to the artifact. It is called the Gracious Orb. Even though it is called an orb, its shape is distinctly crystalline. It once was a part of me, coming into existence at the same time as I was banished. Due to its nature, it only benefits me, restoring the lost portion of my power, increasing my strength, and bestow on me the ability to turn back to my origin form. There was one question burning in Naruto's head right now, and he couldn't help but ask it. How did it appear in Eterna Forest 10 years ago? My mommy and mama had it for so long. I bet they were in front of a mirror or something like that at one point or another. Cynthia pondered on that question for a bit, before telling her own theory. Maybe it wasn't visible when they stood in front of them, or they didn't even wear it as a necklace but carried it around in a small box. Now that you mention it, they never told me how they used to carry it around. Heck, they just gave it to me this morning, and it came in a little box too, he exclaimed, quite surprised himself. Normally the crystal is safe with me in the distortion world. I was careless and overconfident, so I put the crystal into one of the many caves. However, a decade ago a particularly strong space-time quake opened a rift, and the tremors lead to the Gracious Orb falling into aforementioned rift. It must have reappeared in Eterna Forest. For me to pick up its energy signature, the crystal must be exposed directly to a reflective surface. The energy being sent out by the artifact itself is not able to penetrate physical barriers. That may have been the reason why I haven't found it until now. From what I understand, it holds great sentimental value to you, silently inquiring their names. They caught on quickly and introduced themselves with vigor. My name is Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm Cynthia Carolina. Nice to meet you. It is a pleasure to meet you. I must request of you two, though, to please return it to me. It is very important to me. After hearing her request, they locked eyes and held a silent discussion. Several seconds later they nodded to each other, and Naruto spoke up first. We will give it back to you. Giratina visibly relaxed hearing him saying that, but only under one condition. Suddenly becoming tense again, her mind went into overdrive. Did I misjudge them? Are they just talented in masking their true intentions? Before the image of the children could deteriorate any further, Cynthia's joyful voice interrupted her morbid thoughts. Be our friend. That statement completely caught her off guard. All dire thoughts instantly vanished as she heard the sincerity in her voice. It must get pretty lonely and boring with no one to play with, and no one likes being lonely and bored. So Cynthia and me decided we want to be your friends. We would have so much fun together. Giratina was truly touched by their demand. Such kind-hearted humans are few or far between. Your condition seems reasonable. I gladly accept it. Living in seclusion for so long without proper company can be quite bland. Her approval elicited a cheerful yay from the children, who discarded all their reservations and ran up to one leg respectively, giving her a big hug. Well, trying to give her a big hug. This surprised Giratina. They truly do not fear me in the slightest. I don't know whether this is a good thing or a testament of my lacking intimidation factor, she pondered quietly. A glow in her peripheral shook her out of her thoughts. Looking down, she saw a widely grinning Naruto holding out her Gracious Orb without any hint of hesitation. Cynthia, with the same grin plastered on her face, stood directly beside him, hands clasped together behind her back and leaning forward. Her sun hat was long forgotten, lying around somewhere near the lake. Suddenly the crystal turned translucent and floated off of the string it was braided to, moving towards Giratina. I thank you too for returning this to me. This time I won't let it out of my sight for even a single second. The second the Gracious Orb vanished into her body, it started glowing beautifully violet. As the light faded, it revealed her origin form once again, now floating slightly above ground and head bowed in deep appreciation. Well, it was yours to begin with, and you answered tons of our questions, even if you didn't have to. Naruto's joyous mood quickly changed to trepidation as he realized something crucial. How will I explain this to my mothers? I can't just blurt out that I met a legendary and I gave the reason they are together away. Observing the panicking Naruto, Cynthia could only sweat drop. A couple seconds of pacing back and forth by Naruto later, she decided to put a stop to it and grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him around. Calm down, Ruto. We will find a way out of this. If we work together, we will work out something eventually, she said, trying to cool his head down. The other onlooker could only look on, amused by their predicament they found themselves in. I do hope this will not be a bad idea. Well, I won't know without trying, I guess. I may have a solution to your little dilemma. Perking up at the prospect of potentially escaping punishment, they paid rapt attention to Giratina. When she noticed that she had their full attention, she took a deep breath and exhaled. A small, reflective marble floated out of her mouth. It stopped mid-air between Giratina and the children. Suddenly a tiny piece of Giratina's top golden half rings broke away, leaving a tiny indentation, and started gravitating towards the still floating marble. Once reaching its intended destination, the golden fragment enveloped the marble completely, hiding it from view. It morphed between different shapes for a few seconds before stopping, revealing a crystal looking exactly like the Gracious Orb. When everything was finished, it started floating down and came to a halt directly in front of Naruto and Cynthia, who could only stare fascinated during the whole process. They sure did that a lot today. With this, there shouldn't be any problems for you. It looks identical to the original, though is not imbued with my power. Before you take it, I would like to ask you a couple questions. Seeing no problem with that, they nodded and Cynthia exclaimed happily, ask away. You answered so many of our questions, it is only fair we do the same. It was no problem. After all, you returned a missing part of me, Giratina replied sincerely before continuing. My first question is, will you two start your own journey to uncover the secrets this world bears, to reach new heights, meeting new people and Pokemon alike, and make new friends? Of course. They didn't even have to think about what to say before brightly shouting their answer together. If one could see Giratina's face right now, one would see a small warm smile on her face. What conviction! That only reassures me that my decision will be the right one, she thought, impressed and relieved. A splendid answer. Before I ask my next question, I would like to tell you too about an ancient rule we legendary Pokemon upheld since the beginning of you humans. Us? An astonished pair of children asked while pointing at themselves. Yes. To be more precise, it started when the first Pokemon allied themselves with humans and fought alongside them. A look of realization and shock appeared on Cynthia's face. No way. Is she going to ask us what I think she is going to ask? She thought to herself. Her mind a whirlwind of possible outcomes and emotions. Naruto seemed to think about her statement too, but didn't come to any conclusive thoughts yet. Wanting answers, she waited patiently for Giratina to explain what exactly she means. The basically says that if one is a Pokemon of legendary origin, it is only possible to choose one human, who is found worthy, to become the lifelong partner of said legendary partner in battle and life. By that point it already dawned onto Naruto what Giratina was implying and gained a similar look as Cynthia. I hereby offer you two the same opportunity. I wish to assist you two on your journey. Remember that only one can be chosen. It won't impede our friendship though. Even if I am solely partnered to one of you in battle, it won't stop me from being the friend of the other. The word friend still felt foreign to Giratina after countless times spent alone. It feels oddly satisfying to call somebody my friend, she pondered amusedly. The one who wishes to accept my offer shall take the newly created mirror ball and finalize the contract, she finished before floating back a bit. This is a crucial point that will determine her actions afterwards. Meanwhile, Naruto and Cynthia were dumbstruck at her offer. It wasn't even 2 days since they read about Giratina in history and storybooks, and now the very legendary herself offered her partnership to one of them. Cynthia suddenly stood up and pointed at a surprised Naruto and proclaimed loudly, "You should do it. The orb was yours to begin with, so it is only right that you partner up with her." Before he could protest, she stood with hands on her hips and added full of confidence and conviction, "Someday I will find my own legendary partner. Someone just as cool as Giratina. How can I travel besides you and call myself your wife one day if I can't protect you properly?" Blushing slightly, Naruto could only smile widely at her enthusiasm. How can anyone not like her? She is perfect, he thought to himself amazed. If you are really super sure about it, I will accept, he stood up and declared with just as much conviction, but I will help you as much as I can. What kind of husband would I be if I couldn't support my wife to be? Now it was Cynthia's turn to blush, but her radiant smile never vanished. On the contrary, it grew even brighter. "I expected nothing less from you," she said happily. Finalizing their own little pact with a firm handshake while locking eyes in a quick hug, they turned towards Giratina full of determination. "I see you came to a conclusion. Now, step forward and take the mirror ball to complete the requirements," she said, overwhelmed with joy by their prior dialogue. "It seems like I made the right decision calling him," Giratina thought with a relieved smile. Not able to see her face, Naruto and Cynthia were none the wiser about her thoughts. Naruto took a determined step forward and shot one last look at Cynthia. She told him everything he needed to know just by nodding once and giving him a thumbs up coupled with a toothy grin. Her message was as clear as Groudon's sunny day. Go for it. Turning back, he slowly reached out for it. His hand hovered over the artifact for a few seconds. Taking one last deep breath, he closed his fist around it. Suddenly the mirror ball started shining brightly through the cracks of his hand. Naruto wasn't fazed much by it and held on strong. There was no change to the crystal except for the glow. Glowing lines made their way along Naruto's hand, converging on the back of it, forming dark blue spiral. It lightened up shortly and then vanished again. During the whole procedure, not only Naruto but Cynthia too, who moved to stand right beside him, could only stare spellbound by the little light show. They were shaken out of their stupor by Giratina's gentle voice. "With that we are now bound for life. The insignia that appeared on your hand bears my energy signature, but not my energy itself, symbolizing you as my envoy and partner. It allows me to find you wherever you are and whenever you need me. If you wish to summon me, just focus those thoughts onto the insignia. They will be sent to me instantaneously and I will respond to you in the same way, so do not be surprised when you suddenly hear my voice in your head," she explained with a small laugh at the end. After that explanation they could only stare in wonder at what this little symbol could do. Cynthia though looked like she pondered about something before asking, "But why is the new crystal called Mirror Ball? I don't see any mirrors." She emphasized that statement by inspecting said object close up, which was now lying on top of Naruto's skyward-facing palm. "Good question. For that I would like Naruto to focus his thoughts onto the mirror ball and wish for it to expand, similar to any type of Pokeball." Seeing no reason why he shouldn't do it, Naruto did exactly as she asked him to. "Okay. Now first focus onto the mirror ball." A picture of aforementioned item appeared in his mind. "Next think of expanding Pokeballs. Just like mommies and mamas." With that final thought the previously small crystal suddenly turned into an orange-sized ball. Not expecting this outcome, Cynthia and Naruto jumped a little in shock, but that soon, once again, turned to fascination accompanied by quiet exclamations of wonder. Upon closer inspection, it looked exactly like the small marble that came out of Giratina's mouth when she created this, just bigger. The most remarkable aspect of this mirror ball was that, like its name implies, the whole surface of the ball was completely reflective. It still bears the cosmetic indicators of a normal Pokeball though. Those being the separation line, dividing it in two halves, which look exactly the same, and the obligatory button a normal Pokeball has to toggle the expansion. The reflection image was as clear as the reflected object itself, meaning there were no differences at all. Somehow it could even prevent the images from warping and function like any other flat mirror. Oh, so that is what this is for, they both exclaimed in realization. It seems like you figured out the purpose of this mirror ball already. Impressive, she said, her voice carrying a delighted tone. Ah, it was nothing, they replied sheepishly, rubbing the back of their heads at the same time. Usually people would react in some way if another person mimics oneself nearly perfectly, but it happened so often already for the two that it just turned into another everyday thing for them. They found it quite funny the first couple of times it happened, but after a while they saw it as proof that showed just how much they had in common. Well, when one thinks about it for a bit and consider its connection to you, everyone could have figured it out, Naruto answered bashful, still rubbing his head. Cynthia added cheerfully, totally. I mean it's a mirror ball. Knowing that you use reflective objects and surfaces to travel the dimensions made everything crystal clear. You could call it a pseudo-Pokeball, specially made for you. What outstanding children. They are not only humble but also incredibly perceptive. I can't wait to see what kind of change their journey will bring to this world. Excitement bubbled up in Giratina for the first time since the last big battle between the legendaries, which was centuries if not millennia ago. Brilliant thinking, you two. It indeed is a means for me to appear before you should you be in need of my assistance or wish for my company. After all, there won't be any mirrors or the like in a forest, not to mention caves. As you may know, legendary Pokemon cannot be captured. We would simply destroy it. It is impossible to contain a force of nature with tiny, man-made objects, and that is another advantage of the mirror ball. It is nigh indestructible. Only me or Arceus itself are able to break it. It was one surprise after another for the children today. They already knew that legendaries can't be captured by conventional means, but to think that this small ball was so incredible fascinated them to no end. That is incredible. Let's make sure we never lose it, Ruto. We should make a special box or necklace for it. An excited Cynthia suggested to Naruto, who could only shake his head in agreement. Good idea. Let's ask Grandma, Mommy or Mama when we get back. After agreeing to their little plan to keep the crystal safe, Naruto shrunk the ball down again. He figured if he can expand it with a thought, why shouldn't the opposite work? Not only the children were in for a fair share of surprises on this day, it seems. Giratina was astounded by how fast Naruto got used to the mirror ball, even to the point of figuring out how to turn it back again, without any help to boot. There still was a small question floating in Giratina's mind, though I must ask, were you not scared of me when I first appeared in front of you? Looking up at her, they only shook their heads. Not really. I mean, sure, you look pretty intimidating, but if we fear any legendary Pokemon we encounter, how can we be friends with them all? Cynthia exclaimed as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Naruto only gave a thumbs up after Cynthia's explanation. What a splendid reason, she could only sweat drop. Their reason was odd but commendable nonetheless. It was the right attitude to have for their upcoming journey. At least it was not entirely my fault. A small sigh of relief escaped her. Noticing that it was getting late, Naruto and Cynthia decided to head back home for now. We thank you for everything, Giratina. But we must go now or my mothers will be really mad at us for staying out for so long, not to mention missing dinner. Naruto sincerely thanked her with a deep bow. His best friend mimicked him and bowed just as deep. Yet before they could run off, they were interrupted by Giratina's voice once again. Understandable. But please stay just a little longer. I have one last surprise for you too, especially for little Cynthia, her eyes glinting with mischief. Even more surprises? Was the shared thought of the two blondes. You already did so much for us. We're not even sure if we really deserve all this awesome stuff you already gave us, Cynthia said in a small voice, drawing circles in the dirt with her foot. Even though Naruto wanted to somehow cheer her up, he actually felt quite similar. Yay, we just gave back something that belonged to you anyway. Everyone would have done that. Deciding to dispel the gloomy mood, Giratina scolded, "Nonsense. Don't sell yourself short like this. You two are wonderful human beings. Not everyone would have just returned something of such value to me without demanding outrageous rewards or ransoms. So put back on those radiant smiles and await this surprise with the same excitement you showed before," she proclaimed joyfully. All negative thoughts evaporated instantly after hearing her heartfelt speech. "Thank you, Giratina." Glad the two children were back to their cheerful and bubbly selves, she awaited a certain someone's arrival. A devious idea popped up in her mind and she couldn't help but giggle to herself internally, not unlike a certain red-headed mother just before a glorious prank. Back in the daycare, Kushina was currently tending to the eggs Cheryl brought with her from Kalos, putting them in individual incubators. Chew. A cute sneeze escaped her. Pulling out a handkerchief, she cleaned her nose swiftly before putting it back into her pocket. "Are you all right, dear?" Cheryl's concerned voice came from behind her. "Yep. Everything is okay. I bet someone just awakened their inner prankster," Kushina exclaimed with a boisterous laugh, head held high and hands on hips. Clonk. Kushina was crouching low, nursing the new, still steaming lump on her head, crocodile tears flowing out of her eyes. The ever-reliable ladle still in hand, Cheryl furrowed her brows and started scolding Kushina like she was a misbehaving child. In some ways that statement held a surprising amount of truth. "Less playing around and more working, Mrs. Otherwise you not only cook dinner by yourself, but sleep alone today too." Cheryl emphasized her threat by crossing her arms and turning away with an upset expression, occasionally throwing an inconspicuous glance back and gauging her reaction. Of course she would never go through with that threat. She wanted Kushina in bed with her just as much as Kushina her after all. Kushina could only gasp in shock. Not spending the night with her wife? Blasphemy? Throwing herself at Cheryl and holding her firmly around the waist, her head level with Cheryl's stomach, she looked up with big watery eyes and quivering lips, the dreaded puppy dog eyes. "I will be a good girl. Please don't leave me. I will work really, really hard. Stay with me," she wailed in desperation with comical tears running down her eyes. After seeing the miserable form of her wife, she just couldn't keep a straight face any longer and broke out laughing. She kissed the lump on Kushina's head as if wanting to make it better and then pecked her quickly on the nose. She moved her lips beside Kushina's ear and whispered a quiet, "Gotcha," and twirled herself out of the grip and skipped back to work, leaving a dumbfounded Kushina behind. "I just got pranked by my wife." She stood up and slowly got back to work. Her face all of a sudden broke into a huge smile. "God, I love this woman. This is it for today."